G'day trendsetters, Dano here from Dano's channel, back at ya one more again with another project from the shed. Today's job is going to be installing some hydraulic steering on the boat. So we've got ourselves a COMKIT-6 which comes with a 512 BH slave cylinder for the outboard and a Commander 500 series Helm. So look, it comes with all different sorts of bits and pieces. There's lots of fittings and some oil and all that sort of stuff that comes with it. So without too much more dicking around, let's get into it. Alright, one of the first things that we're going to do is install these fittings into our slave cylinder. So they are a T-piece, it's a tapered fitting. When you are installing them, use the green Loctite that comes with it. And when you are installing these fittings, just be aware that you can swap the side that the bleeding valve's on. So don't be too concerned if you get it in and one of the valves is facing the wrong way. You can swap them over. Don't over tighten these, don't use thread tape or anything like that. Stick with what comes with it and make sure you use the correct size spanner. You don't want to be butchering these fittings. So first thing we're going to do is pop these plugs out. Just clean that out with a little bit of degreaser so that our Loctite does its job. Ordinarily I would just spray some down in there to clean that thread up, but I don't want the brake cleaner down in that hydraulic cylinder. It might be bad for the seals, I don't know, but I'm not going to take that chance. So I just want to clean these threads up. Right, yeah, now we've got those threads cleaned up, we're going to grab our Loctite and we'll spread a little bit on the fittings. So I'll just pop that open. I'm just going to use a little bit of TIG filler rod to spread some of that out. Don't need to go crazy with it or anything like that. Right, I'm just going to take that fitting off so I can get my spanner on there nice and easy. It'll be a 16mm spanner for that. Don't do these up too tight, it's only an alloy material, you don't want to strip it out. I'm going to go to about there with that one, and like I said, it doesn't matter if this is on the wrong side, you can always swap it over. I'm going to leave it on just a little bit of an angle, or I might crank it around a little bit more just so I can get my hose past. If you can't quite get the right angle that you want, you can back it off a little bit while that Loctite's still wet and get your fittings lined up properly. Right, onto this second one. Right, no need to go crazy with it, you don't want it to get down into the cylinder. So we'll just pop that one on. Yep, that'll be good. Alright, like I say, if these nipples and the hose connections are not in the right orientation, you can swap them around. If you do go to swap them around, just make sure that you hold on to the fitting with one spanner and then crack that with another one, just so you're not putting too much pressure on that. Alright, so that's done. I'm going to put that off to one side. I'll let that Loctite go off, and I will grab the helm and we'll throw the fittings into the back of that helm. Righto, so this is our helm unit, and what we've got to do now is install these fittings here into the back of the helm. So they go in these ones with the red plugs in them. Don't tamper with the ones that have got the screws in them. They're for testing and all that sort of stuff. So let's pop these plugs out and we'll put the helm in. So when you put these fittings in, line them up with so they're not pointing at each other, so you can get that hose in. It's pretty basic. So let's get that done. Same deal here. They would have put some oil in it for testing and all that sort of stuff, so I'm just going to give those threads a bit of a clean, and I'll put that fitting in. Righto, now we've got those fittings clean, we're going to throw a little bit of Loctite on these. Once again, they've got a tapered thread on them, and you don't use thread tape or anything like that, it'll contaminate the system. So we'll just get some of our Loctite, spread it out over our thread. You don't have to go crazy with it. And then we'll thread it in. Just be mindful of these, where your hose exit, where your fitting and all that sort of stuff is. So this is the top of your helm. I'm going to spin mine around just a little bit more so I can exit the pipes out to the left. That seems nice and firm, so I've just got to do that other one now. So you can undo this fitting here to give you a little bit more room for a throw when you're tightening them up. Once again, it's a 16mm spanner. And don't overdo these. Okay, you can see there that mine are both exiting more or less straight down and to the left. Might just go a little bit more on this one so the hoses don't clash. There you go, so they're not going to interfere with each other. You reckon about that? Alright, next thing we're going to do is move on to the boat, and we'll start pulling all the old gear out and give this Loctite a little bit of time to cure. Alright, let's go. Alrighty, so the next thing that we've got to do is take all our old steering components out. So I'm going to start by taking off the steering wheel, then I'll take the old helm out, and I'll pull the old cabling out, and then we'll go back to the outboard and do that. So let's get into it. Usually when you take a boat out, there's always something to fix, and I've noticed that I've got a little bit of a crack in my steering wheel here. So look, I'll keep going with the install, but I'll TIG that up before I put it back on properly, and yeah, we'll go from there. Rightio, so I'll TIG that little crack up before I put that on. I might even just give the whole lot a bit of a clean up, and yeah, before I put this back on, I'll put a bit of anti-seize in there so that if I do need to get it off the shaft of the new helm, it'll be nice and easy. If you do hit the end of the shaft on the Commander series helms, you can damage all the seals and that inside it, so we won't do that. All right, now I'm going to pop this off and continue taking the helm out. I'm going to take the keyway out of it just to make it a little bit easier to get out. So I don't need this for the new one, but I might sell this old steering to someone nice and cheap, and they'll need that bit, so don't lose it. Righto, so that gets us into the bolts for our helm. So I'm going to take that out now, and I'll see if this hole is big enough. If it's not big enough, I'll cut it out with a bit bigger hole saw, and yeah, we'll go from there. Righto, that's all the bolts out of that. Now I'm just going to disconnect this bracket from the helm and pull the helm out from the back. So I'll do that before I take this last bolt all the way out. Righto, I'll just disconnect that and then we'll move on to the back. Rightio, the next thing we've got to do is remove the old steering cable from here. So I'm going to start off by taking off the old steering linkage from the other side there. Just going to leave the nut on that a little bit so I can take this one off on the bottom of the motor. When you are doing your install, make sure you use the bolt that came with the Hydrive. That is the weakest part of the unit. Don't just use a stainless steel bolt or anything like that, because they're too hard and brittle. So if we can get this one out without taking the cowling off. Righto, we'll make sure that we keep all the components out of that together. It does have a thrust washer that goes in there as a bit of a spacer so that it can pivot freely on that. Alright, with that all disconnected, that motor can move freely, so just don't put yourself in a situation where you end up caught in a bit of a pinch point. So we'll move on to that other side. We'll clip some cable ties off our split ducting there, and we'll take this steering tube out. Rightio, with our split ducting removed, the next thing we've got to do is undo this nut here, and then we should be able to pull our steering tube out. So for that, I'm just going to use a shifting spanner. If you do have the right size spanner, use that please. Awesome, I'm just going to loosen the plastic nut on the other side, and then I'm going to pull that cable out. Alright, with both of them off, I should be able to just pull that cable out now. A little bit of finagling back into under the gunnels there, and we should be right. Right, when you're doing this, it's a lot easier if you retract your steering cable. So turn your helm all the way to port to retract that cable, and it makes it a bit shorter and easier to get out. Rightio, there we have it. That's our steering cable out. So we'll feed that back through the boat because we don't need that anymore. And then we'll fit our slave module. So now let's get this out of the way and then start on that slave module. Now we're going to install the slave unit on the outboard here. So this one comes with a bit of blue Loctite, and there's two bull horns. You've got this one here which has got a whole heap of grooves in it. That's for the starboard side, and these little brass doohickeys here that come with it, they engage in those wedges, and that's to center the motor, if you will. I'll show you that shortly. All right, the kit comes with a little bit of grease just for lubing up the O-rings. There's marine grease for lubing up the O-rings on the bull horns. This one that doesn't have any grooves in it, that's for the other side. So I'm going to pop over and do that. This blue Loctite, you know, that's for the threads on the end of the slave unit. And when you're torquing these down, you torque them down to 20 foot-pounds. Don't grab hold of this shaft with anything. You don't want to score that, otherwise it'll leak. So all right, let's go and pop the other side on first, and we'll come back and do this side. Just going to loosely put these on for now, and I'll give them a hit with a torque wrench once I've got the other side in as well. So let's pop over there and get that one done. Same deal on this side. Lube up these O-rings. There is two of them on this one. And then we'll slide this cap onto this bull horn. All right, we'll slide it right down the end here, and we will insert it into our tube here. I'll just put a little bit more grease on it because I like them well lubed up. So we'll slide that into our tube like that. And then I'll line the bull horn up over the steering cylinder. Just push it across from the other side a little bit, and the job will be right. There we go. All right, so I'm going to torque these down, and then I'm going to attach the bolt that secures our steering cylinder to the tiller, if you want to call it that, or the steering arm on the bottom of the outboard. And now we've got everything installed here. You know, we still need to drop these brass collets in, but before we do that, we're going to fit the bolt which attaches the steering cylinder to the tiller. So we'll do that now. Just make sure that these little washers go in. That'll allow it to pivot nice and freely on the tiller. All right, we've got that bolt started, so we'll just run it down and put the lock nut on the bottom and job will be right. Rightio, we've got everything buttoned up. We've torqued down that bolt on our tiller to 25 foot-pounds. Make sure you lube up those little bushes in the tiller arm with some good marine grease before you put them in there. We want that bush to pivot on the tiller arm, not the bolt, especially when it's under load. Next thing that we've got to do is put these little brass bushes in. So like I said before, they engage in these grooves here on the bullhorn. So we're going to put them in on the one that's in the groove that's closest to the motor, and then we're going to swing the motor backwards and forwards and just check to see that it's in the right spot. If the motor does go all the way around to the stops, we'll just move them out of groove until we get it to where we need to be. Right, we can take these little bits of protective rubber off now. Hopefully it doesn't shoot oil everywhere, so we'll just swing it backwards and forwards and see how it goes. Alright, so I can see that we've got a lot of movement around to our port side, but not so much back to the starboard. So we're going to loosen this off and move those collets out. Alright, we've got everything centered up nicely. There is a little grub screw in this black nut here. So if it is in a spot where it's a little bit difficult to get to, like down here for example, just take it out and move it around to one of the other holes and nip it up there to prevent that nut from coming undone. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my steering hose and I'm going to feed it through the back of the transom here, and yeah, then I'll go up and mount the helm. So throw a little bit of tape over the end of this because you don't want any rubbish or anything in that, and I'll feed it through. Let's get it done. Righto, both ends are taped. Now I'm going to feed it through this nut and through the transom and up to the helm. I'm going to feed two together at a time, so it's going to be single length, and then when I'm ready to connect down this end, I'll just cut it to the right length. So let's get that done, and I'll see you when I'm up the other end ready to mount the helm up. Rightio, we've got our hydraulic lines all run up through the boat up to the end here. The next thing that we've got to do is drill out the holes for our helm. So I'll just put them back. Now that's our helm, and luckily for me that'll fit through there, so that's awesome. All I need to do is drill these holes. So Hydrive give you this little template which shows you where to drill. So I'm going to stick that over there. But what I am going to do is I'm going to stick a torch up from behind, just shine a torch on the back of the hole. With a bit of luck that'll be bright enough to shine through the paper and I'll be able to see where to mark. Luckily for me, one of the holes down the bottom there is in the right spot. So all I've got to do is worry about these top two. So I'll just line that up now and I'll use a little punch to mark my other two holes. Alright, that worked a treat, that torch in the back there, so there's a handy tip for you. Alright, I'm just going to punch these two holes in and then we'll get to mounting up the hydraulic lines and putting the helm in. Rightio, we'll just try that for fit, make sure our holes line up, and then we'll get to putting the hoses on. Beautiful. Alright, we'll pop this back out again and we'll trim our hydraulic hoses to length and put them on. We're going to trim these lines off and then attach them to our helm. So when you do trim these lines off, make sure you don't use a hacksaw to do it, because a hacksaw will leave little bits of debris in the line, which will go back and bugger up the seals and that sort of thing. Not only in the helm, but in the slave as well. So use a nice sharp set of cutters, pipe cutters or something like that. I've got a good set of shears here, and make your ends nice and square as well. One. Two. Now we're going to attach our helm to our pipe. So you take the nut off the elbow that's on the back of the helm, and there's a little brass olive there. That olive actually gets compressed when you do the nut up. So when you push the pipe into the back of the helm, push it all the way home, just nip it up a little bit and then pull the pipe out 1 to 2 millimeters, so that when this does compress fully, it actually grips the pipe and pushes it nice and firm into the fitting. So yep, let's do that. Alrighty, so we're going to slide the nut on first, then the olive. Make sure we got a spanner nice and handy. Then we're going to insert it into the elbow in the back of the helm, push the nut up to it, do it up, And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of tape up against the fitting. So when I pull it back just that little bit, I can see how far back I've come. Right, so you should have another spanner here to support this when you nip it up, so you're not putting pressure on the fitting. Right, you can see there that olive has bitten into that pipe nice and firm. So I'm going to do that other one now, and then we'll pop down the back and work out which hose goes where. Okay, I had a bit of a minor hiccup with the audio. So, basically what I'm saying here is I've come down the back, I've trimmed my hoses to length. One of them was blanked off up at the helm. I blew down the hoses to see which one had resistance, and the one that did have resistance I put a bit of tape around it, and I could match it with one that was taped down the other end. Next thing that I did down here was slide the nuts on and the olives, and then connect my lines up to the steering cylinder or slave cylinder. I then repeated the process for the other side. I trimmed the end of my hydraulic hose nice and square, slid the nut and the olive on, and hooked it all up. When you do cut your pipes, just make sure that you leave enough length so that when the motor does move to the left or right, there is a little bit of play. Alright, we'll do that nut up, and in a second here you'll see me fit a little bit of tape onto the hydraulic hose so that I know how much I've pulled back out of that olive. Now I'm going to nip it up a little bit. I'm just going to do it loosely enough to grab that olive. Remember, you don't want to put too much pressure on that T-piece. So if you need to grab another spanner to support it, that'd be good. Once this is in, I'm going to grab that bit of tape that I mentioned, and you can see here that I'm going to mark the line with it so that I know how much I pull that hose back out of that fitting. Right, there you go, 1 to 2 millimeters. Pretty happy with that. Now we'll nip it up a little bit more and head up to the helm and attach those hoses up there. With both of our hydraulic lines attached to the back of the helm, we're now going to nip them up. Make sure that you use another spanner to support the fitting, just so you're not putting too much pressure on the elbow when you're cranking down on them. Last thing you want to do is snap it off in the back of the helm or strip the thread out or anything like that. Also gives you a little bit of mechanical advantage as well. Once we've got those nipped down nice and firm, we're going to refit the helm into the dash on the boat and lock it away. Our hydraulic circuit is now complete, so we're tied in with a cylinder down the back there. All we've got to do, slip this into the dash, whack a few nuts on the back of it, refit our steering wheel, and then bleed the system. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's get it out the garage and bleed it up. Alright, now our helm's all installed. The only thing we've got left to do is put the steering wheel back on. I was going to TIG this one up and clean it up a little bit, but I've decided against that. I'll get a new one, but I will use this one for now. So to put it back on, make sure that you install your little half moon shaped wood roof key in the key slot on your helm. So that just sits in there like that. And then pop your steering wheel over that and align the keyway that's in your steering wheel up with the Woodruff key. Yeah, we'll just put that on. I'm not going to do it up super tight because I am going to change it out later on. But yeah, if you do ever need to take the helm off, like I said to you earlier, don't strike the end with a hammer. It'll damage all the seals in there. Just use a puller, get underneath and just pop that off that Woodruff key. Alright, next thing we're going to do is install our little bleed nipple, which goes into the top of the helm here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll move the camera. Alright, hopefully you can see that a bit better now. So we're going to remove this bung that's in the top of our helm and we're going to insert that bleed nipple. And in the kit you get this tube which pushes onto a bottle of the fluid. This stuff that was provided with the kit, you do get 2 litres. 2 litres is enough for the kit, but it's not going to be enough to bleed it comfortably, so you might have to get yourself some more. Alright, let's get that all in place. Alright, so we'll screw our nozzle onto our bottle. Now, cleanliness is the key here. You don't want to introduce any foreign objects into your fluid system. Okay, with that tube pushed on, you can see that it's filling up the helm now. This is a lot easier with 2 people doing it, which is why I've got that bit of wire there. So I'm going to tape my bottle onto that bit of wire. Just put another one on it to make sure it stays there. Now the problem you're going to run into this is because it's a closed vessel, you're going to get a bit of a vacuum there. So you've got to cut a notch into the bottom of it. Don't use a drill or anything like that because that'll introduce a little bit of debris into the bottle. So we're just going to cut a notch out of it with a Stanley knife. Alright, you can see our tube filling up now. Once that gets all the way full, we know that our helm itself's full of fluid. Now what we've got to do is head down the back and we'll crack the bleed nipple. We're going to be turning our helm to the left first, so we need to crack the bleed nipple on the starboard side of the slave cylinder. So I'll just go and crack that open. Now that's open, the aim is to turn your cylinder, or turn your helm I should say, to port, and you want to aim for about 1 turn a second. Just keep an eye on your tube because this bottle will run out of oil pretty quickly. Right. can see the sight glass on the side of the bottle. So, alright, before that completely empties, I'm going to go and lock off the bleed nipple at the back here, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to take the top off this bottle so I can keep topping it up. Righto, we're going to top up our makeshift funnel. Don't forget to keep an eye on your jug or bottle or whatever you got down the back there that's capturing the oil that's getting pumped through. You don't want that to overflow everywhere and make a mess. Now look, you can reuse that oil that's coming out the other end there. It will be fairly aerated, so you're going to have to let the air settle out of that oil first, and strain it as well is a good idea. Just get any foreign objects out of it or any debris. Alright, it is a good idea to put a rag or something down just to capture any oil that you do spill. And yeah, I'll go and undo that bleed nipple down the back and we'll keep going. When you are doing this, it's not uncommon for the motor to move. We're just going to keep doing this until we're not seeing any more air bubbles come out down the back. There we go. Don't forget to keep an eye on your jug or bottle down the back, make sure it doesn't overflow. Alright, that's everything done. So, it's been a pretty easy process, you can do it yourself. So steering works well back there. Doesn't seem to be any slop or anything in it. The only thing I've got to do now is give it a bit of an ocean trial and see how we go. Okay, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button down there. And until the next project in the shed, stay out of yourselves. Yoo!